From feuding with Shaq on live TV to breaking down the GOAT debate, Charles Barkley always manages to make headlines. And this time, he went ahead and explained why Jordan is not the GOAT when it comes to basketball. Be warned though, because you're probably not going to like what he had to say. Alright, so Charles Barkley is well educated when it comes to basketball, and for some reason, he really likes to pitch in when it comes to the infamous GOAT debate. This is also where he often butts heads with Shaq. However, this time, he outright claimed that the debate is a farce. Alright, maybe he didn't say it like that, but he did talk about why there can never be one true GOAT. Now, I know this is getting a lot of you a little too antsy. I mean, saying something like that is blasphemy when it comes to the world of basketball. Still, I have to hand it to Barkley. His argument is worth listening to. See, while a lot of people think that LeBron is now officially the GOAT, there are a lot of reasons that point to why the truth may not be so clear. And that's sort of what Barkley is trying to say as well. After all, according to him, it's impossible to have just one GOAT. Look, it's important to remember how every era of basketball has had a different play style. These days, it's all about draining threes and insane handles. Back in Jordan's day, it was more focused on mid-range jumpers and dunks. Then, if you go even further back to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's day, you get the skyhook in all its glory. The point I'm trying to make, and I'm sure that Barkley tried to establish this as well, was that you can't take one player and name them the GOAT of a sport. There are always going to be newer players who manage to achieve more than their predecessors, and older players who remain untouched. This is a big reason why you can have a generational GOAT, but never an overall one. The fact that people keep on arguing over whether LeBron or Jordan is the GOAT just takes away from the true spirit of the game. I think the answer is pretty obvious in the fact that at some point in the future, there's probably going to be a new player who's being checked for GOAT status. That's why it's probably better to keep things limited to a Hall of Fame from a generational perspective. With that said, there's still the flip side of the argument. I mean, why can't we just name LeBron as the GOAT and be done with it? Okay, so as I mentioned before, it's nearly impossible to have one single GOAT in this sport. But for your sake, let's consider LeBron to be the GOAT. What's the issue with that? Well, first up is Barkley's original argument, which talks about how every era has had a different GOAT. You can't just say one legend is better than the other. If you go ahead and pit them against one another in a 1v1 setting, everybody would beat everybody else at some point and lose at other points. See, the simple fact is that if LeBron has achieved a certain amount of achievements, then there's another player we can add to the GOAT debate every time who's managed to outdo him in some department or the other. Let's take LeBron's championship wins as an example. Jordan still one-ups LeBron there because he was able to win 6 championships throughout his career. With that being said, you might think Barkley forgot all about Kobe Bryant. Don't worry, he had a bunch to say on that topic as well. When it comes to talking about who the GOAT is for this era of basketball, the title keeps getting thrown around between Kobe, LeBron, Shaq, and so on. Though, for simplicity's sake, let's just take the two most popular options in the form of Kobe and Shaq. Now, these two men are considered to be basketball gods. There are not a lot of players who can hold even a candle to the ability that they possessed within themselves. However, there's one reason why Barkley thinks LeBron is the better player here. That's because, no matter what you say, Kobe still took a year or two to adjust to the whole NBA scene, whereas LeBron came ready for the NBA straight out of high school. The man was breaking records at 18. That's unheard of, no matter what era you're referring to. That's why Barkley thinks, no matter how great Kobe was, LeBron has simply been better. There's also the fact that LeBron's career has that unparalleled longevity to it. Still, you have to wonder whether there is a current player who can dethrone any of these guys anytime soon. In my opinion, there are a few nominees. See, every year, some new prospect enters the NBA and wows us all. A good example of that is Wembanyama. While he isn't in the NBA yet, he's slated to be be even better than LeBron. I know, that's a lot of pressure to place on a kid his age, but it is what it is. One thing's for sure, and that's the fact that Victor is going to explode onto the NBA scene with style. He's a talented player with a very promising future. Then you have players like Luka Doncic. This dude is insanely talented. The man knows exactly how to wow whichever crowd comes to watch him. He's been breaking records ever since he started popping off in recent times. If he continues to play at the pace that he is right now, there's no question in my mind that he'll be able to dominate the league for years to come. All he needs to do is keep working at it, and before you know it, we'll all be racking our brains at the GOAT debate all over again. With all that being said, there's just one more question left to answer. Will there ever come a day when we can consider a player to be the one true GOAT? This is a tough question to answer. See, with everything that I've talked about so far, it's clear that this question barely holds any meaning anymore. Sure, I mean, there will always be a certain player who will be considered to be the GOAT of a certain era of basketball. But one thing that you have to understand is the fact that this is a sport that's constantly evolving. Sure, right now there's a particular meta that's being emphasized a lot. However, in a couple of years, there will be a new strategy that everyone will be focusing on, and whichever players excel in it will be crowned the new GOATs. In the same way, if you take LeBron and throw him into Abdul-Jabbar's era, there's no way he'd be able to compete with the skyhook. It just doesn't compute. That was an era where the game was dominated by centers.
You know, I had a moment there, but I don't think it's really hit me on what just transpired. As much as I tried to live in the moment, it was kind of a blur. But looking back there and seeing my guys back there, and
a player of LeBron's height would be considered scrawny. This is probably the biggest reason why there can never be one true GOAT. There will always be a new player that gets drafted and is considered the next best thing. I've seen this happen year after year. At this point, I've resigned myself, like Barkley, to one simple thought. Every era or generation has that one player that defines the way the game is played during that period. This era has LeBron, and there will probably be some new player that impacts the game in a similar manner in the future. The most we can do is sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. That was everything on what Charles Barkley said about Jordan not being the true GOAT.